Good morning, class 9 children. Welcome back. Today is Wednesday, and as per the routine, you have English literature or English paper 2 to continue. Hope you all are fine and safe at home and also doing your preparations on those taught chapters by all the subject teachers. Carry on and also uh, keep doing your homework as given by all the subject teachers. So, to come back to our today's lesson, let us recall what we had done in our past online class. In our last online class, we had started a new story in our textbook Treasure Trove. The story is of the American author Timothy Say Arthurs, An Angel in Disguise. We had seen the first part of the story, and today we are going to continue the same. And let us see how far we can travel, and if it remains incomplete, we'll keep it for the next time. So let us recapitulate till what we had done in the story, An Angel in Disguise. We saw the story takes place in an American village, and there you saw a drunkard mother, on reaching home, uh, falls down dead at the entrance of the house, leaving behind the three younger children in the family. The father of the house is unknown to us, so it is nowhere in the story told about uh, the father. Perhaps he had deserted the family and gone astray, or he might have died after the birth of the third child in the family. So, the saddest part to know in the story is there is the death of the mother now. As long as the mother was alive, she was rebuked, she was criticized, she was mocked by everyone living in the village. Uh, Perhaps she is an alcoholic lady, that is why she became uh, a talk of everyone uh, in the village whenever they see her. But today she is no more. And as we know, on the death of anybody, uh, there is always uh, sorrows to be expressed by each and everyone. We saw the same thing happening uh, to the people living in this village. The news of the death of this mother uh, went lips to lips, and the neighborhood uh, got together to see the family. So each one of them brought something or the other for uh, the house. Some brought shroud, white sheet to cover the dead body, as the family happens to be very very poor. Some brought food items for the survival three children, and some even brought the whole cloths for these children. Right? The three children were John, the firstborn son. He was 12 years old, a very stoutly built boy, and he's an assumption that if somebody takes a farmer takes him to his house, he can be workable in the field. Right? The next was Kate. She was in between 10 to 11 years. She is a very active girl. And the third was Maggie, and she was a diseased child. And we know what was the fate with her. You saw when the mother was alive, 2 years ago, the mother had kept the baby on the windowsill, and perhaps she went with the work inside the room, and the child fell down. And when she fell down from the windowsill, she had broken her spinal cord. Thereafter, she was completely bedridden. I see. That was the saddest part in the story to know. And today, the three children are parentless. They have no father, and the mother is also dead now. Right? Now, those people who have assembled to see this that they were worried. Now, what will happen to the children? Everybody had the same question asked one to another. So, what should be done to these children, right? And uh, Farmer Jones volunteered that he would be taking son uh, John, because he has a mind to take this child to work in the field. The next kitty was chosen by Mrs. Ellis. She was looking for a bound girl for several months, and though Katie is a small girl, but in the years to come, she can be handy at home, right? So she volunteered to take Katie. Now came the question on Maggie, a diseased child. There was no question uh, raised by anybody what should be done to this child, because nobody was wanting to take the diseased child home, because taking a diseased child home means taking the problem at home, right? Because the child Maggie could not walk all by herself. She was completely bedridden. If she has to walk anywhere, somebody has to carry her in the person's arms. That was what was the fate of the child today. Now see, so uh, now some ladies who have come here to see the family, and and have brought some cloths. They changed Maggie's soiled cloths, dirty cloths, into the cloths what they had brought, and but the question was left in everybody's leave, that who is going to take this child, right? When nobody volunteered to take this child, Maggie, home, uh, unanimously they had taken a decision that the child should be taken to a poorhouse, right? A poorhouse is an almshouse. It is an orphanage where the child would be taken care of, right? So finally, the question seemed to be solved, that the child Maggie is to be taken to a poorhouse. Now, what happens from here? We have to continue the story. So here we go. So let's see. So if you are ready with your textbook and the page number where we had paused last time, you can see. Today's page is 78. The last paragraph to continue. So see, there was reason in that, but still it didn't satisfy. The day following the day of death was made the day of burial. Now you see, the mother is dead. Now she has to be taken to the burial yard where she is to be buried there, right? A few neighbors were at the miserable hovel. A few neighbors had come at this house, at this hut. Hovel is a hut, is a shanty, a poor house, right? But none followed dead cart as it bore the unhonored remains of his pauper grave, right? So when the dead body was kept in the cart and to be taken to the graveyard, nobody wanted to follow the dead body. Nobody went for a procession, right, along with the dead body, because the dead body was of a very pauper uh, person. Pauper means very, very poor, right? So nobody wanted to join in the procession to go the dead body to be taken to the graveyard, right? Farmer John's, after the coffin was taken out, placed John in his wagon and drove away. Now you see, Farmer John's, who had already volunteered in the meeting, that in the get together, that he would be taking the responsibility of taking uh, John with him. So he noticed that the coffin was taken out. Coffin is the box in which the dead body is put and to be taken to a graveyard to be cremated. When the coffin was taken out, he placed John in his wagon. Wagon is a transportation vehicle, a car, and he quickly drove away. That means he went taking John as soon as the coffin was headed towards the graveyard, satisfied that he had done his part. And Farmer John was satisfied because he had, Farmer John was satisfied because he had done his work, right? Of taking the responsibility of nurturing or taking care of John. Mrs. Ellis spoke to Kate with a hurried air. Mrs. Ellis, who had already taken and gave her verdict that she would be taking Kate with her, she was very quick in now speaking to Kate. Now what did she say? See, bid your sister goodbye. So she told, bid means tell. She told Kate to say goodbye to her younger sister Maggie, right? That she is now taking leave with her, and drew the tearful children apart. Ere scarcely their lips had touched in a sobbing farewell, right? So ere means before, farewell means goodbye, right? So as Farmer Jones was seen very quick enough to take John from there, right? Mrs. Ellis was also nonetheless. She also told uh, Katie or Kate to say goodbye to her younger sister. And before these two sisters could meet, uh, an embrace or hug, and said into tears, right, of being departed now from one another, right? Here, Mrs. Ellis took Kate with her, right? So before they could meet each other and say goodbye to one another, right? The sisters could say goodbye to one another. Mrs. Ellis uh, took Kate. Hastily means quickly. Others went out. So when the two children were now taken away by the two responsible buddies, right? The rest of the people began to empty the hut now, one by another. Some glancing at Maggie, some looking at Maggie. Glancing means taking a look at Maggie, and some resolutely refraining from a look, and some decidedly, right, trying not to look at her, because if you give an eye to her, that means you feel sympathy, you feel compassion at her, right? And then you feel like taking her, but but nobody wanted to take her, because taking Maggie home means you are taking a big burden with you, right? Until all had gone, right? And slowly, everyone in the house began to empty. They went back to their own respective homes. She was alone. So inside the hut, inside the hovel, Maggie was left alone, right? She was lying on bed, unable to get up, unable to walk. Just beyond the threshold means the entrance, the door, Joe Thompson, the wheelwright, paused. So just at the main gate of the house, right? Joe Thompson, who was a wheelwright. Now, who is called a wheelwright? A wheelwright is a person who repairs or makes the wheels of the cart, right? He's called a wheelwright, right? So he was living in this very village, Mr. Joe Thompson, who was a wheelwright. So he was at the door, and when he was at the door, he suddenly paused. He suddenly stopped and said to the blacksmith's wife. Just next to him was the blacksmith's wife. Now, who is called a blacksmith? A blacksmith is a person who works with iron and makes the horse shoes, right? So she was there standing. Now, Joe Thompson said, who was hastening off with the rest, right? And the blacksmith's wife is also now hastening. Hastening means she was quickly going away, because she doesn't want to be the last person to leave the house or leave the hut, because the last one to leave the house means he has to take, or she has to take the care and attention of that girl Maggie, because how can you leave the child who is a disease, right? So the responsibility of Maggie would seem to come on the shoulder, right? Who is going to be the last one to take leave from that house, right? So the blacksmith's wife doesn't want to be the last one to take leave from the house. So before she becomes the last to leave, she was seen hastening off. She was seen quickly going away from there, right? Now what did Joe Thompson say to her? It is a cruel thing to leave her so, right? Joe Thompson said to her, it is a very cruel thing, impolite thing to leave that child here in this place all alone, right? How she is going to live her life, right? Then take her to the poorhouse. She will have to go there. Now, blacksmith's wife says to Joe Thompson, right? You take her to the poorhouse, because it is a unanimous decision taken that she will have to go there. So she said, she suggested him to take the child to the poorhouse, because he will have to go there, right? It is everybody's reason. Answered the blacksmith's wife, springing away. Springing means jumping, right? So if she sees anything in front of her, she doesn't want to stop there, right? She was seen clearing it, right? Jumping over it, right? And um, as fast as possible, she be away from the house, right? And leaving Joe behind. Now, who was the person? The last one to leave the hut. It was Joe Thompson. He stood there. The rest, all of them have now escaped. They all have taken leave. For a little while, the man stood with a puzzled air. So Joe Thompson, when he was alone at the threshold, he was quite confused what to do. Puzzled means confused. Now, should I take leave like others have done, or should I stay here and take care of this child? Right? He was quite confused, puzzled. Then he turned back. But instead of going away from there, he turned towards the hut and went into the hovel again and went inside the hut again. Right? Maggie with painful effort. Now what did he see when he went inside the hut? He saw Maggie, right? With a painful effort, what she has done, had raised herself to an upright position and was sitting on the bed. So she tried herself, though with utter pain, much pain, right? Because she was not able to raise herself and sit on the bed. But today she tried, right? Using her all effort, all pain, right? She was seen sitting on the bed, straining her eyes, and she was forcing her eyes looking at the door, right? Upon the door out of which all had just departed, and everybody had now cleared out, everybody had gone, right? But the child Maggie was still looking at the door with the hope that, right, somebody will come to take me, like they have taken my brother and sister. A vague terror, a vague means unclear, hazy, a hazy fear came into her, right? She was frightened, had come into her thin white face, right? So she was very much afraid, right, to find herself that she was all alone left there. There was nobody now who is going to take care of her. She was very, very afraid. Okay. Oh, Mr. Thompson, she cried out. But when she saw Mr. Thompson getting inside the hut, right, she then shouted loudly, right? Cried means shouted loudly. Catching her suspended breath means she was panting. She was unable to breathe, right? She was finding it very difficult to breathe. Don't leave me here all alone. And she told Joe Thompson, please don't leave me here all alone, right? It is a very painful sentence which she spoke to Joe Thompson, right? So she doesn't want to be left here all alone, right? Now what she's going to do, right? How she's going to live her life, right? Though rough in exterior, Joe Thompson, the wheelwright, had a heart. Now this portion describes Joe Thompson, right? Though rough in exterior, so Joe Thompson was a heavily built man, right? He was quite rough in the look. Exterior means the external appearance was quite rough. He seemed quite, you can say, rude type, right? See, the wheelwright had a heart, but inside in him, the heart, right? How was it? See, and it was very tender in some places. He had a very soft heart. He had a very, very kind-hearted heart, right? The outside appearance looked very, very rough, right? Very, very angry sort of man. But inside in his right heart, he was a very, very mild man. He was a very, very soft. He was a very, very kind-hearted person. He liked children. And look at here, he is very fond of children. He used to love children, like children, and was pleased to have them come to his shop. And he used to like children coming to his shop, right? He had a wheel shop, as we already know. So he's a wheelwright. He repairs and even makes a new wooden wheel for the carts, right, in the village, right? So he used to call these children to his shop, right? And he used to love talking to the children, right? Listen now. Where sleds and wagons were made or mended for the village lads without a draft on their hoarded sixpences. Now you see, so he saw where sleds are the sledges, right? They are the sledges. They're the mode of transportation, right? And wagons, they are the transporting vehicles, right? Were made, right? The new wheels are made for them, or even mended, repaired of those broken ones for the village lads, for the village boys, right? Without a draft on their hoarded sixpence, without costing them much money to be paid on the work, right? So that sort of man was Mr. Joe Thompson, the wheelwright, right? Now, what did he say to Maggie when he entered in, and when he heard Maggie telling him, "Don't leave me here alone," right? Now, what did he say? "No, dear," he answered. in a kind voice, right, going to the bed. So he returned to the bed, and returning, he said to the child, right, no dear, I'm not going to leave you here alone, he said in a very kind voice, right, in a very, very loving voice, and stooping down over the child, and he bent, right, stooping means bending over the child, right, you shan't be left here alone. And he says, you shan't means you shouldn't be left here alone, right, he told the child. Then he wrapped her, then he covered her. Wrapped means covered, right, with the gentleness almost of a woman, in the clean bedclothes which some neighbor had brought. So he looked around and saw one bedsheet that was just now brought by some of the ladies in the neighborhood, right, for this house, right. So it was a neat and tidy bed sheet. So he took it, and thereafter he covered the child, right, with that bedsheet, right, very lovingly, just like the hand of a lady, right, the soft hand of a lady, right, and lifting her in his strong arms, bore her out into the air and across the field that lay between the hovel and his home, right. And after wrapping her, after covering her with the bedsheet, right, he then lifted her up in his arms, and then bore out means and carried her out into the air, means in the open sky, out from the hut hovel and across the field. And he took his way right across the field that lay between the hut and his own home, right. So finally you saw Joe Thompson, right, comes to aid the little, you can say, diseased child Maggie. When everybody had taken leave from home, it was Joe Thompson who turned, right, um, very soft in him, right, and then carried the child towards his home, right. Now see, now Joe Thompson's wife. Now this paragraph describes Joe Thompson's wife. How is she? Right? See. Now Joe Thompson's wife, who happened to be childless, right? So Joe Thompson and Mrs. Thompson had got married since years, but they are issueless, they are childless, they have no children born of their own, right? So that means the woman was a sterile mother, right, and not a woman of saintly temper, and she was also a woman of not a holy temper. Saintly means holy, right. She wasn't a holy kind sort of lady, right, always irritated, always angry, always disapproving, such kind of lady was she, right, Mrs. Thompson. Nor much given to self-denial for others good, right, and she also did not want to see others growing up good, right. So that means she was quite a jealous sort of lady, right. She was not satisfied a lady, right, in herself. And Joe had well grounded doubts touching the manner of greeting he should receive on his arrival. And on the way, Joe Thompson, who carried Maggie in his arms, right, to his home, he was already thinking what his wife would say, right, before he reached home, because it was a clear thing in his mind that his wife would not agree to keep this child at home, right. So this is already there in his mind, right. She would disapprove of this. So Mrs. Thompson saw him approaching from the window. Now you see, Mrs. Thompson was waiting for Mr. Thompson coming back home. So from the window where she was standing and looking at towards the field, she saw Thompson, right, heading towards home. Now see, and with ruffling feathers met him a few paces from the window. And when she saw from the window her husband coming towards home, she went to receive him, right, in the house veranda. And with ruffling feathers, ruffling means angry, right. There was no happiness seen, no smile seen on her face, right. Her face was very angry in the look, right. She went to meet her husband few paces away from the door, and he opened the garden gate. So he came, Mr. Joe Thompson came carrying the child in his arm. He opened the gate anyhow, right, and got inside the house veranda and came in. And thereafter he came to his house. He bore a precious burden. So he has a very wonderful, precious, very valuable load carried with him, right? And he felt it to be so. And he felt, right, it is a precious burden to him, right? As his arms held the sick child to his breast, and as he had carried the child, the sick child Maggie, in his arms, He brought it towards his breast. That means he brought it towards his chest, as if loving so much. A spear of tenderness went out from her and penetrated his feelings, right? And as he drew the child towards his chest, as if a miracle took place, that the spear of tenderness of the child's heart touched the feelings of Mr. Joe Thompson, right? And penetrated his feelings. Penetrated means entered into his feelings, right? The softness, the gentleness of Maggie's, while he brought towards his chest, holding her. A bond had already accorded. A bond has already been connected between the two people, right? Itself around them both. And love was springing into life, and love was springing, jumping into life in both of their lives, right? The child's life and as well as Joe Thompson's life. Something, a miracle sort of thing happened when Mr. Joe Thompson brought the child very close to his chest, right? So, whereas there was no change seen in whom? In Mrs. Joe Thompson. She still looked angry and disapproved of what Joe Thompson had brought at home. What have you there? Sharply questioned Mrs. Thompson. And Mrs. Thompson angrily asked. Sharply means angrily asked. Right? What have you brought? Right? She asked. Joe felt the child start and swing against him. Hearing the voice, the angry voice of Mrs. Joe Thompson, the child, Maggie, right? What started? Right? That means she was moved. She was shaken with fear and shrink against him and became small, crouched in the arms of Joe Thompson. She was really frightened to hear the voice of Mrs. Joe Thompson. How angrily she asked what had Joe Thompson brought home. He did not reply, but the husband kept silent. He did not respond his wife's question, except by a look that was pleading and cautionary. Right? He just gave a look to his wife, which seemed to be requesting something. We seem to be providing some caution, right, to her. That eyes perhaps said, "Wait a moment for explanations and be gentle." The look of the eyes of Joe Thompson, right, when he looked at his wife who questioned him, right, yeah, the eyes said, "You please wait, right? Wait for the explanation, and you be gentle as a lady you are." Right? That was the kind of look Joe Thompson gave to his wife. Right? He did not answer, but he looked at his wife in that gesture. And passing in, and he crossed her. Right? Carried Maggie to the small chamber on the first floor. He carried the child, Maggie, still in his arms, to the room inside. And he placed on the bed. And laid her on a bed, and he kept her on the bed. Right? So what gentle work, what kind work did Joe Thompson did to this child, you see, right? Everybody neglected her, everybody ignored her, nobody wanted to take her, right? It was Joe Thompson who perhaps was the last man to clear the hut, had to bear this child home. Okay, then stepping back, then he stepped back after placing the child on the bed in the room. He shut the door, he then closed the door. He was out of the door now, and he stood face to face with his vinegar-tempered wife, and he came face to face with his vinegar-tempered. Vinegar means very bitter-tempered, right? Very, very angry sort of lady who wasn't happy at all, right? In the passageway outside, so in the corridor, in the passage, right? They met each other. He met his wife. "You haven't brought home that sick brat." Anger and astonishment were in the tones of Mrs. Joe Thompson. Her face was in a flame. Now what did wife say again? You see, she told, right? "You shouldn't have brought home that sick brat." Brat means a spoiled child. Why did you bring that spoiled child home? You should not have brought her here. Right? There was anger seen on her face and astonishment. Astonishment means surprise. She was very surprised to see her husband bringing the child home, who perhaps she had not expected. Right? That her husband will be bringing the child at home. Where in the tones of Mrs. Joe Thompson, her face was in a flame. That means, flame means red hot. She was wild with anger. She was furious. Right? So not only her voice seemed very furious, her looks were also the same. Right? She looked ferocious. She looked very, very angry. Red hot with anger. Right? "I think women's hearts are sometimes very hard," said Joe. Now what did Joe said, right? I think women's hearts are sometimes very hard. Not always. Sometimes the women's heart is um hard, right? In other times, the women's heart is taken soft, right? So the ladies or women, the feminine gender, they are taken as a soft hearted people, right? So see, usually Joe Thompson got out of his wife's way or kept rigidly silent and non-combative when she fired up on any subject. So normally this is the routine with Joe Thompson. When he notices that his wife is angry at some reason, what he does, he remains silent, right? He remains silent, because if somebody is telling you something angrily, and if you retaliate, if you answer in the same way, then what happens? There is a quarrel, and the quarrel will lead into blows, into fight, right? It will cause bloodshed, right? Peace is vanished. So husband Joe thought that when my wife is angry, why should I quarrel? Why should I invite fight? Why should I invite quarrel? Better is to remain silent, right? And non-combative when he fired up on any subject. Non-combative means like no battle to take place, because uh, mm, normally the battle or the quarrel do take place when you when you return the angry words on the person who is speaking to you. So better is to remain silent. Joe Thompson used to practice this, right? Either he used to remain silent or he used to clear out from the room, right? So see, it was with some surprise, therefore, that she now encountered a firmly set countenance and a resolute pair of eyes. So he saw that his wife's face was very angry, right? So see, firmly set countenance means her facial expression seemed very, very, you can say, disapproved of. She did not look welcoming to the child at home, right? Joe Thompson noticed this when he looked on the face of his wife, and thought better that he should better not answer, or better not engage himself in talking back to his angry wife, right? So women's heart are not half so hard as men's, right? And you see, so women's heart are not even half, right? Hard as the man's is. A man is taken a hard-hearted man. He gets angry, he retaliates, he fights, right? What not? But women generally don't seem to do this, right? So they are not even half as hard as man's heart is, right? So see, Joe saw by a quick intuition. Intuition means understanding. Here Joe understood something on seeing the face of his wife, that his resolute bearing, that his determined bearing, right, had impressed his wife, and he answered quickly and with real indignation. Indignation means with real anger or displeasure. Be that it may, every woman at the funeral turned her eyes steadily from the sick child's face, and when the cart went off with her dead mother, hurried away and left her alone in that old hut, with the sun not an hour in the sky. So, whatever happened at the time of the people leaving the home, Joe Thompson narrated to his wife. He told that everyone in the hut began to take leave, and nobody wanted to take the child to his home, right? So when the dead mother's dead body was put into a coffin and taken for cremation in the graveyard, right? The people all hurried home, right? They all started taking leave, okay, from the hut, right? And I saw it was late evening, right? With the sun not an hour in the sky, means it's not even 1 hour left for the sun to sleep or for the sun to set, right? It was late evening, right? So what should I do, right, to leave the child there? Where were John and Kate? Asked Mrs. Thompson. Mrs. Thompson then asked, where are the other two children, right? John and Kate. Farmer Jones tossed John into his wagon. So Joe Thompson narrated the same. Farmer Jones dashed quickly, right, John into his wagon, and he drove off, and he went away, taking him home. Katie went home with Mrs. Ellis, and Katie was taken away by Mrs. Ellis as she was looking for a bound girl, right? But nobody wanted the poor sick one. But nobody wanted this poor child, Maggie, right, who is a sick child. Send her to the poorhouse was the cry, right? And everybody shouted, everybody cried, everybody said, right? That the child Maggie should be taken to the poorhouse. He told the same thing what happened out there, right? Why didn't you let her go then? What did you bring her here for? Then the wife questioned. And now, if everybody had taken a reason that Maggie should be taken to the poorhouse, then why did you let her go? Right? You should have taken her, or you should have let her go there to the poorhouse. Why did you bring her here? Why did you bring the child, the sick child, at her home? She questioned. She can't walk to the poorhouse, said Joe. And Joe said that she is a diseased child. She is completely a bedridden child. She can't walk. Right? So I brought her here. She can't go to the poorhouse. Somebody's arms must carry her. Somebody has to carry her to be taken to the poorhouse. Right? He said. And mine are strong enough for that task. And I thought, it seemed that my hands are strong enough to carry uh, the poor child Maggie to the poorhouse, as said by everybody. So I brought her here, right? Then why didn't you keep on? Then the wife questioned. Then if such was a decision taken by all, and you were to carry the child to the place, right? So why didn't you then go on, right? You should have taken to her to the poorhouse. Why did you bring her here? The question again was this: why did you stop here? So why did you stop here in our home? Why did you bring her here? She questioned, demanded the wife. The wife here asks, right, the husband to respond. Because I'm not apt to go on fool's errands. Then the husband says, because, right, I'm not apt. Apt means suitable, appropriate, right? It's not appropriate to go on fool's errands. Errands means orders, right? I don't want to go on the fool's orders. Those people who said that she is to be taken to the poorhouse, right? They were all foolish people, and I don't want to go, right, on the fool's orders. The guardians must first be seen and a permit obtained. So before I take her to the poorhouse, I need to talk to the people there, the staff in the poorhouse. I need to find out whether she can be admitted out there or not, whether there is a seat for her or not, whether there is a bed for her or not. Right? I have to first get the information of the poorhouse, and after having the talk and dealt with it, then I would take the child to home or to the poorhouse. Right? He said this. There was no gainsaying this. So there was no gainsaying. Gainsaying is denying, refusal to what is said. Right? When will you see the guardian? Was asked with him irrepressible impatience. Yet the wife said, so when are you going to see the guardians? That means when are you going to consult the people in the poorhouse? Right? She asked, still being right impatient. Right? Irrepressible means she was not able to restrain, right, the patience. She was not able to control the patience. Right? She is still angry why the husband has brought that sick child here at their home. Right? Then the husband says, tomorrow. So I'm going to take her tomorrow because it's already night now, right? And where should I take her? So it's better I'll take her tomorrow, right? He said to his wife. Why put it off till tomorrow? Go at once for the permit and get the whole thing off of your hands tonight. The wife is still argued, saying that why are you putting it tomorrow? Why are you keeping it to be done for tomorrow? Right? When there is time, go at once and take the permission from the poorhouse authorities, right? And get the whole thing done, finish it off tonight itself, right? Let there be no tomorrow, she said, right? That means Mrs. Joe Thompson was wanting the child to be taken to the poorhouse then and there, right? There's no reason to pass the night here in the house. It's better, right? Do it now only. So go to the poorhouse, consult the staff out there, and talk, deal, and thereafter finish it. Doing it tonight itself, she told. Now the question comes whether Joe Thompson will obey his wife, or what reason will Joe Thompson take, right? Will he keep the child as he told the night in the same house and take her tomorrow or the next day morning, right? Or what happens, right, in the later part of this story? So we are still left with some more portion to cover, so we'll keep it for the next class. I hope it is understood what we have done so far. Revise it again, right? Go through the taught portion once more, right? Find out the difficulties and If you locate any of the difficult words, right, get them noted in your textbook with a pencil, and later on to copy it in your exercise note. This is what every English learner should do, right? The difficult words must be okay, made simple as possible, so as to make yourself understand what the story's content is. So I hope you understood. So we'll meet again next time. Thank you very much.